I think, ma'am, with your kind permission, should we start, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, just give me 2 minutes. Yes, ma'am, for your introduction. I just need to. Ma'am, one word about one statement about participants that they are very active, supportive, and ma'am, very interactive also. And they are associate professors, assistant professors, lecturers, librarians working in different colleges and universities of India. And participants, we have with us a very dynamic resource person of India. And I am showing you a picture. You can, I think all of you can recognize this picture. What is this? If I would like to ask from anyone, one response. Abru ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, this is NEP 2020.
Okay, thank you. So I think all of you are aware about NEP 2020, but there is one expert behind the preparation of this NEP 2020, and we have with us that expert, former officer on special duty, OSD, National Education Policy 2020, Dr. Shakila Shamsu, ma'am. She is the person who was responsible for making this policy, for making this policy, for bringing this policy in the public domain. Ma'am at that time was working in the Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Ma'am has also worked as Secretary committed to draft National Education Policy. Ma'am has also worked as Advisor, Special Education Policy, Center for Public Policy and Research, Kerala. Ma'am has the experience of around 4 decades, more than 4 decades experience is there. And ma'am has also worked as Nodal Officer of Government of India, scheme of National Mission on Teachers and Teaching. I think all of you are aware. And National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, all of you are aware, where SWAYAM courses, where there are many program was launched at that time. Ma'am took initiative, and the programs like LEAP, Leadership for Academicians program, Annual Refresher program in teaching, ARPIT, of all of you are aware, FIP, Faculty Induction program, all these are the brainchild of ma'am. Ma'am has worked on these things, and this, because of the ma'am, these programs are possible. And ma'am has also worked as Joint Advisor, Education Planning Commission. Ma'am has published a good number of papers, research papers, articles in different national and international journals of repute. Ma'am has also worked in the 11th and 12th plan of Government of India. Ma'am has completed her MA Political Science as a gold medalist. She was gold medalist in MA Political Science, and she has completed her PhD in education. And for the last, for around 40 years, she was associated with University of Mumbai and Indira Gandhi National Open University. And these days, ma'am is busy, and still she has given us time. We are very happy, lucky that ma'am is here, who will give us first-hand experience. I mean, no one can give you first-hand experience about NEP. Only ma'am can give, because ma'am has worked on it. Not only worked on it, but now in its implementation, ma'am has given, I think, more than 200, more than 400 sessions on NEP. So if you have any doubt, any question, any query, any observation, so we have a person, we have a resource person, expert who has worked on it, who was the OSD on NEP. So ma'am, thank you. You are so busy and you have given us time. Always we are fortunate, ma'am, that you have always given us time, ma'am. As and when there is a talk on NEP, this is your commitment and dedication towards implementation of NEP, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mohammed Shakir, and good afternoon to all the participants. Though we have only a session of about 1.5 hours, I would really like to do it in a sandwich mode, which is my normal pattern, where I would really invite a couple of you, maybe 2-3 of you, who could share your thoughts on the national education policy, because for me, the NEP has been an exercise which I'm associated with since 2014. And it's actually 10 years for my association with NEP, because we started preparing background notes for NEP in October 2014 and formally launched the consultations in 2015, though the policy was actually approved by the Union Cabinet on 29 July 2020. And since then, if you see, in this year, it will be completing 4 years. But all of us are still trying to understand and get ourselves sensitized and oriented to NEP, as if it still seems to be something that we are not able to understand. So I would really like to know, because some of you are already implementing it in your institutions, and I would like to get a ground reality from you all in terms of what is it that you all face as challenges when implementing the recommendations of NEP. So it's about 1:52 now. Till 2 o'clock, I would invite a few of you to share your thoughts. And then I'll talk on holistic and multidisciplinary education, which is the theme today. And we'll wind it up again with interaction in the last 20 minutes. So please feel free to unmute yourself, introduce yourself in the discipline and your institution, and speak your thoughts on the NEP. Please feel free to speak in Hindi or in English or any other language like Marathi, or I can understand Marathi, I can understand Hindi. Even if you're saying it should be okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. Mohammed Shakir, are you still there? Can you coordinate the questions coming from the participants? I would really like to hear the participants before I get into the topic.
Participants, as ma'am has already said, that language is no bar. If you want to express yourself in Hindi, Urdu, English, or ma'am has also said giving you freedom in Marathi too, although I will not be able to understand Marathi. So language is no bar. Please, आप अपने ख्यालात का इजहार करें, आप क्या सोचते हैं एनईपी के बारे में, बिकॉज दिस प्रोग्राम इज अबाउट एनईपी सेंसिटाइजेशन. तो आप अपनी आपके एप्रीहेंशंस, डाउट्स, कुछ भी आपको लग रहा हो, या अच्छी चीजें, ज्यादातर इसमें ऐसी अच्छी चीजें हैं जिसमें कि आप देखेंगे कि अभी टाइम लगेगा, लग रहा है बल्कि इंप्लीमेंट हो रहा है, तो आप देखेंगे, तो आप कुछ भी आप बताएं, मैम आपको सारी चीजों से क्लियर करेंगी और मैम बताएंगी. जी आबरू मैम कोई बात करना चाह रहे थे, किसी ने किया था मैसेज. जी हेलो पार्टिसिपेंट्स, एम आई ऑडिबल? आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी आ रही है, आवाज आ रही है आपकी.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, then please ask your question. See, we cannot remain passive in these sessions. I don't like faculty remaining
All of you are
silent.
आप जिस भी लैंग्वेज में चाहें मैम की बात, मैम से बात करें. और
आप बच्चों को सिखाते हैं, कॉलेज के बच्चों को सिखाते हैं, then how is it that you can remain so silent and passively listen to a resource person? I'm amazed at that. It's quite a disappointment if I get faculty who are not using an opportunity where before I talk, I would like to hear from you.
Yes,
and that helps me in understanding also.
On any issue of NEP, yes, on any issue, on any topic, on anything, whether it is related to teacher education, whether it is related to anything, so new structure, on anything you can ask. अहमद साहब, क्या हमारी आवाज नहीं पहुंच रही? I am just surprised because you all are interactive, so interactive in all the previous sessions, and the person who is coming directly from NEP. हाँ, बात करिए नईम साहब जी.
आपकी आवाज आ रही है, आपकी आवाज आ रही है
जी. बात जी मैम से, आप जो भी आपके हर 100% आपके जहन में कुछ ना कुछ सवालात हैं, क्योंकि ये अभी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन स्टेज पर है, अभी इम्प्लीमेंट हो रही है, तो जो एप्रीहेंशंस हैं, डाउट्स हैं, मैं आपके सामने मैम हैं जी.
Hello, sir and ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I want to share my view and also my doubts regarding the program here. Like
please introduce yourself and the discipline and the institution.
I'm actually state-aided college teacher in CUD Vidyasagar College of District Birbhum, West Bengal, and my discipline is physiology. So it is a life science-based subject. And we study the about the human body and the animal physiology.
No, you don't have to explain the discipline. You tell me your question.
No, why I'm explaining it. So what the NEP 2020 has designed for the program, that 4 years. So we are having some problem, like we are not ready. Many of the colleges, suburban colleges and of different universities are not actually very much ready to implement this program after 3 years. We don't have any infrastructure like that to conduct the research development programs like the student has in the 4th year, their internship program. And maybe when we will reach after 3 years to that point, what we will give the student, those who have opted for the 4-year program, the major 4-year program. Basically, as it is a science subject, and we need a tremendous upgradation in our infrastructure. And I don't know that if anyone is present here similar as a faculty member who also feel the same, that our colleges are not ready, that NEP program is very much a good program which is actually help the student to remain in the same fit with other students of the different nationalities, means in at international level. It is a very good program, but before implementation of the program, I felt that this there should have been very much homework should have been done by the universities as well to conduct this program, that after 4 years we don't know what we will give the student, those who have opted for the 4th-year program. With the honors program, we are not also ready to give them the research facilities. And I do also have a question, that if someone after the 4th year, means if we are not able to give them the program honors with research program, they are opting for the 4-year program, they are doing the bachelor degree, will they do the master degree for 2 years, means the post graduation program for 2 years, or will they do for 1 year only?
Okay.
This is my question.
Okay.
Thanks
Dr.
for listening patiently.
Yeah. No problem. I get your point, and I appreciate your concerns also. Yeah, I think there's one more participant who wants to ask a question. Please go ahead. I'll take up both together. Please unmute yourself.
Unmute kariye, please.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shakila, and good afternoon, ma'am. This is Dr. Fazlur Rahman, Jamia Hamdard, New Delhi. We have introduced NEP since 2 years, and we are facing practical problems. And I am involved in that process. I am in the team of where we are implementing this. So my experience is totally practical experience, not theoretical one. The first question is that since we have introduced multidisciplinary courses, skill-based courses, vocational courses, so ours is basically a science university, although we have got commerce and arts courses. So we are not getting faculties to teach these subjects. Now, if we say that the university has to hire this, then the financial constraint comes into being, where the hiring teacher for this particular courses, vocational courses, skill-based, multidisciplinary, so it's becoming very difficult. So that is one question, that how do we get faculties to teach different things? It is not possible for ourselves to change our field. That is number one concern. Number two concern is that since we are into second year of NEP at the undergraduate level, in about 2 years time our students will be in final year. NEP says that only those students will be getting more than 70 or 75% will be eligible to go for this research based 4 years undergraduate program. Now that will be very less, say about 8 or 9, 10 students. So we can say that of course we are maintaining the quality of the research. We can say that, but then do we really have that level of research in the universities where we'll be having only 9 students? What about the financial constraints that university will not be getting proper number of students to look after the financial issues? That is constraint number 2. The constraint number 3 is that still the documents, I have read the NEP documents which was released on 29th of July 2020 and the later documents also. There are some doubts which are still not very clear, which inshallah in the second session when you'll give us the opportunity to interact, I shall put forward those questions. So these are my 2 primary concerns. Thank you.
So first, let me take up what Dr. Chatterjee was putting forward. I am glad you raised this issue, because on physiology, I'm sure the need for having infrastructure does come into play. However, for the non-science subjects, largely the existing, even for the science subjects, which are the normal physics, chemistry, and the normal life sciences of botany and zoology, the existing lab facilities should be adequate. It's not that, though we are completely aware that higher education institutions in our country are situated at different levels of infrastructure availability, and many of the colleges still are very deficit in terms of the physical infrastructure of classrooms, of ICT facilities, equipments, lab equipments, and so on. even library resources and so on. But at the same time, any policy that is made cannot be said that we cannot. What is a college? When you say our college is not capable of implementing it, college is an entity, which is an entity that you see in a physical term, but it is made up of teachers. It is made up of people who constitute the leadership. So when you say the college, it is not the building which is saying it cannot implement it. It means we as teachers are showing our resistance to not being able to implement it by trying to find out that these are some of the stumbling issues that come in the way of it. Now that has to be overcome. You cannot have progress, you cannot have change unless we also make an effort to arrive towards that. These may come in through very small steps. So even in a college which is lacking in infrastructure, we have very clearly indicated in the UGC implementation guidelines that you enter into MOUs with other institutions for sharing of resources, for sharing of other departmental facilities, and this has to be done. What is actually happening is that we are still sitting in an age-old 20th century, and I highlight the point, age-old 20th century. Please understand, as a generation, we have studied in the 20th century, and we are teaching our students born in the 21st century. So you must understand that we are really an outdated system of faculty that we are, because our education was in the previous century. Though it is only 24 years back, it is a sizably very long period given the extent of the changes that have happened in this intervening period. So what we studied, and our times what infrastructure was there, those infrastructure keep on adding. There is of course full recognition that funding is a problem, lack of infrastructure is a problem, teacher training is a problem, lack of equipments are a problem, parents come as a major stumbling block, students are coming with a mindset where they thought everything has to be spoon fed to them. But all this has to change. We have to change it, and therefore when we put it in a policy, the simple thing is, in today's world, you cannot survive as a department in its own intrinsic self. You have to collaborate with other departments. You have to collaborate with other institutions. So we have said to transform institutions to become multidisciplinary. Yours is only a science college or only an arts college or a commerce college. We want to offer multidisciplinarity. What the gentleman was saying in terms of skill courses, you have to collaborate with other institutions, with industry, with NGOs, with civil society to make all this possible. So for your subject of physiology, which is a very specific question, my only response to you would be that, what is it that you need? List it out. What is it that is lacking in the laboratory facilities for physiology has to be listed out. And if yours is a college affiliated to university, this should be brought to the notice of the university. So in terms of the 4 years since the policy is approved, it is unfortunate that universities have remained so slack and not at all proactive in trying to do all the brainstorming and arriving at new curricula. How do we go about implementing it? You're absolutely right. It is for someone who was a part of that policy process. When we meet, when we talk to other committee members, all of us are alarmed that our higher education institutions have been so enormously lazy and lackadaisical in not appreciating that this reform is not for the benefit of the committee members or two people who are sitting in the committee. It is for the benefit of the youngsters, that they become productive individuals. And they will not become productive individuals if they are going to study in the way we've studied. Because in our times, we didn't have certain dynamic changes that forced us to come out of certain situations, which I'll explain as I go along. So I would urge that if it is a science college, collaborate with an arts college. If it's an arts and commerce college, collaborate with another institution. We want collaboration with law universities, agriculture universities, pharmacy, but we are so tightly closeted. My department, my subject, my topic, I don't want to talk to another faculty from another department. You have to understand, in the 21st century, collaboration is the way we go forward. Can you assume as a nation, if India says that no, I will not have any trade relations with another nation. I will not have any economic relations with another nation. I will not have any defense relations with another nation. I will not allow my Indians to go out, neither will I allow others to come in. Would we as a nation survive? Ask yourselves this question. How can you remain so blind to the fact that education is something that is collaborative by nature? In terms of teaching, learning, in terms of research, in terms of internships, in terms of vocationalization, in all these areas, we want collaboration. Collaboration can be with another institution, collaboration can be with an NGO, collaboration can be with an industry, collaboration may be with a laboratory. All this is a necessity, and we cannot think that my department, my institution must become completely self-sufficient. Please understand, we are a resource constrained nation. And if you have 1,062 universities and 47,000 affiliated colleges, all of them will not be at the same level of infrastructure in terms of many aspects. And you have to work within what is available. That is how you live in households also. In households which are very well to do, also there is milk coming in. Households which are struggling with poverty is also having certain basic necessities. You don't set the same yardstick for that, but all have to survive. And that is the way we have to look at it. Be very pragmatic to arrive at that. So I am only trying to say that when you say college is not prepared for it, college is made up of what? College is made up of only three stakeholders. It is made up of the administration, which is the management, the faculty, which is you and me, and the students. And when we say that they are not prepared, is it the student not prepared? Is it the faculty not prepared? Or is it the leadership not prepared? Are we not capable of independent thinking and rational understanding that this has to be done? So let us try to make a collective, proactive, progressive thinking, rather than saying, I don't want to be shaken out of my comfort zone. I am used to teaching in a manner in which my teachers taught me, and I don't want to change. That has to completely go away. Now, coming to your question, the 4-year bachelor's with research. Yes, the 4th-year student who is doing a 4-year bachelor's with research has to do only a 1-year's a bachelor's with research, has not got to do a master's, joins the PhD program directly. And yes, that is the reason why, to answer the second person's question, the reason why we put that a CGPA of 7.5 and above will be the criteria to join a bachelor's with research, is because such students are not going to do even a master's program, but are directly eligible to join the PhD program. Now, coming to his question, in terms of the skill enhancement courses, nowhere in the policy or in the UGC guidelines, we expect and we think that our higher education institutions are capable of providing all the faculty for the skill enhancement courses. We don't want UGC scales approved faculty for skill enhancement courses. We don't want that at all. We only want people who are actual professionals in the industry, having actual experience in that field. So when we look at skill enhancement courses, don't think we are talking about plumbing, masonry, electrical, being an electrician. We are talking about logistics management, retail management, supply chain management, agribusiness management. There are people who work in these sectors, and it is these people who are taken on a contract basis, so that is not a big financial burden for the institutions. Mind you, they are professionals who are already earning good salaries in their own industries or corporate sector, and we are only trying to get in those services of those people. We did two things. One, we said we bring out the professors of practice. Those are the professors of practice who are people working in the industry or may have even retired, but who are willing to contribute. The other is for skill enhancement. You take in people from industry on an ad hoc contract basis, which is not a big financial burden. We don't want UGC approved scales with pension to be given, and that is not a feasible proposal at all. So when we look at these workable solutions, in my talk, let me try and make it very clear to you all that as a nation, we are at a stage in which it is imperative that we go towards holistic and multidisciplinary education. And I just get into that, and we can take up interaction again towards the end. Maybe I could stop by about 3:20 or so and keep it up to, sorry, our timing is up to 3:15. I'll stop at about 2:55 or so that we have another 20 minutes for the interaction. So coming to the topic on hand, firstly, as an educator, when Dr. Shakir had showed the document and one of the faculty members recognized that as the NEP, which is only the 66-page document, I would, as an educator, request all of you and urge all of you that you should really read even the committee's report. The committee's report, of course, is a voluminous 484-page document. And as a policy, you know that we covered the entire spectrum, starting from early childhood care and education, starting from age 3, and looking into the new paradigm of the 5+3+3+4 for school education at the 4 stages of the foundational, preparatory, middle, and secondary stage. Then went on to cover higher education, which includes within itself technical and professional education, agriculture education, legal education, medical education, and went on to look at teacher education, vocational education, open and distance learning, adult education, and cross-cutting themes of language and culture in education, technology in education, research and education, all these as part of a very comprehensive coverage of the sector in its totality. Now, if some of you feel that reading that 484-page document is not meant for us, and if we as teachers can abdicate that responsibility, say, no, I am teaching only Indian history, mujhe kya karna hai pura document padh ke, then I think you are not fit to be a faculty in higher education. I can be very blunt and upfront with my experience in the sector, that if you say, my topic is to teach Indian Constitution, or my topic is to teach inorganic chemistry, or my topic is to teach some subject, and मुझे क्या लेना देना है कि पूरा education policy का मैं draft committee report पढूं, then I would really feel that if an educator is saying that, then really you have chosen the wrong profession to do that work. Because if an educator does not feel the responsibility to understand what an education policy report looks like, then I don't think any one of us are really having the right to say that we should continue to remain in a teaching profession. Please start rethinking and looking at other jobs rather than being in this profession. So I would really ask each one of you to read through the draft NEP report. This is also available on the website of the ministry, and if you Google it today, you can easily get access to it. Don't have to read it in one go. You read parts of it, because in an or soft copy, you have the benefit of being able to read it in parts. You can do that. And then when you read the NEP 2020 also, the 66 pages, that 66 pages, at least don't dilute it and read only the higher education part. The reason why I'm saying that is, as far as education is concerned, from a perspective of whom? A student. It is a one single organic continuum. We in the committee recognize that learning is a single organic continuum. A 3-year-old becoming a 15-year-old, then going on to collegiate education, is all in one single organic continuum, because with age-appropriate learning, developmentally appropriate learning happens. And what you study in the earlier days, the way you study in the earlier days, the pedagogy that you use impacts subsequent learning. And to the great extent that foundational learning, including early childhood care and education, has empirical based data and evidence to tell us that a child who is exposed to a very robust ECC program acquires life skills, communication skills, collaborative skills, work skills that make them productive individuals. That is the impact of learning as it happens. And that is why subsectors are connected. So as a prelude to my session, I would reassert the fact that as educators who chose to take up teaching as a profession, you have a greater commitment to understanding a policy in all its ramifications. So please read through the committee's report. As I said, a voluminous one, read it in bits and pieces, but read through the NEP 2020 at least in its totality of 66 pages. And don't take only higher education, because higher education, the recommendations emanate from school education, and there is a continuum in which that recommendations come through. Now, coming to the topic on hand and why we recommended holistic and multidisciplinary education. It is all based on the fact, if I may say it, that the NEP 2020 talks about the feature or the characteristic of flexibility. Flexibility is the underlying theme of this policy. The flexibility in your medium of instruction, flexibility in the pedagogy and the curricular choices, flexibility in the assessment, all these are emanating because of the changes and the ecosystem within which we are. That's why I kept telling you that please understand, as a generation, we are fortunate to have lived through 2 centuries. We studied in the 20th century, and we are teaching our students who are of the 21st century. And a child born after 2001, in all probability, is not likely to see the 22nd century unless the longevity of the person is more than 100 years. So we are fortunate, which is something that you have taken for granted and not even acknowledged, that you are fortunate to see through 2 centuries and therefore seen developments of both the centuries. Now, any policy in any sector, all governments bring out policies, all nations bring out policies, and policies come out in all sectors that the government deals with. It can be economic policies, industrial policies, health policies, defense policies, trade policies. It comes out in all sectors. And policies don't get frozen in time. Policies are always revisited and new policies come out. So what is a policy actually telling? It is actually responding to changes that happen within the society and the economy. Independent India, in terms of education policy, we have seen 3 policies. One in 1968, one in 1986, which was modified partially in 1992 with very minor modifications, and then the one which has come out in 2020. The 2 having come out in the previous century, and this one having come out in the 21st century. And even as I say 21st century, please understand it didn't come out in 2001. It came out after 2 decades of the century in 2020, and we are getting into a quarter of the century to try and understand what this policy is. So policies are to be seen as independent of each other. Never mix policy with politics, and never think that policies are, because they were bad, a new policy has been brought out. Every policy is responding to certain changes within the society and the economy. So we are all beneficiaries of the 68 and 86 policy, because that is when we were doing our education. Our students are going to be the beneficiaries of the 2020 policy. Now, what are those drivers of change in the 21st century that force this particular policy to make the recommendations as it outlines? Whether it is holistic and multidisciplinary education, whether it's equity and inclusion, whether it is research and education, whether it's technology and education, why did we make the recommendations in the manner that they are? What are those drivers of changes? 2 aspects. When you look at education, the 2 things that come to your mind is that it deals with knowledge, either knowledge transmission or dissemination that we do through teaching, or knowledge creation or generation or production, which is research. So it's dealing with knowledge. And the other thing is dealing with learning. Both these aspects of knowledge and learning have undergone a tremendous change in the character and transformed itself in the 21st century. What do I mean by that? At our times, when we studied, and bulk of you who are in the age group that we are as faculty, as assistant and associate professors, we thought that disciplines exist, knowledge disciplines exist to the exclusion of other disciplines. That a discipline of economics excludes history, excludes political science, excludes physics, excludes biology, excludes engineering. That is, disciplines were seen as intrinsic in itself to the exclusion of other disciplines. Whereas towards the end of the last decade of the 20th century, you find a phenomenon where you recognize that knowledge does not exist in hardcore buckets, are not to the exclusion of others, but that knowledge disciplines are interconnected, and that knowledge disciplines are basically porous, and the porosity of knowledge results in new ideas from other disciplines impacting another discipline and leading to the new notions of interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, transdisciplinarity. These new notions arise because the character of knowledge has become porous, and because of the porosity, it is not to the exclusion of other disciplines, but it is the integration and the amalgamation of disciplines. This is the primary critical differentiation in the character and the actual inherent nature or the characteristic of knowledge as what it was in the 20th century and what it is in the 21st century. So when you read through any government reports, you will find that it talks about a knowledge society or a knowledge economy. And when you talk about knowledge economy, it is understanding that the urban planning is related to transportation, it relates to power, it relates to health, it relates to education. You are looking at all sectors being cross-sectoral by nature. Just as knowledge economies have become cross-sectoral, knowledge as a character having become integrated, amalgamated. When you talk about education, education cannot be hard silos like you and I are. Arts, science, commerce, engineering, medicine, pharmacy, agriculture, nursing, law, and within that, your subjects. It's no longer like that. It has changed. And therefore, to accept multidisciplinarity is the need of the hour. As I said, it is imperative. And to ignore that is like a cat drinking the milk with its eyes shut, not being cognizant of the realistic changes that have happened in the character of knowledge. Now, just as knowledge is multidimensional, learning, the other vertical, is also multidimensional. The bulk of us as teachers and as students were looking at only one dimension of learning, and that was learning to know, the cognitive part of it. So while even the Bloom's taxonomy and many other theories of education will talk about different levels of understanding, it's all related to acquisition of knowledge. And even when you talk about the three characteristics of learning in the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor, or the heart and the head and the hand, these were only looking at the main important part of learning that contributed to the head. And that it was not looking at what we did with the hands, or it did not look at the emotional or the affective part of it, which is also equally important. But learning in the 21st century is characterized little differently. Learning to know, which is what bulk of us do in our classrooms, the transmission of concepts, theories, knowledge that exists in conceptual form that we pass on to our students. That which resides in me as a faculty, I pass on to my students through a variety of transactional approaches that I take up. I use a chalk and talk, I use a presentation, we use different forms of pedagogy to transmit what we know to the learner. And that is the learning to know, which is the first pillar of learning in the 21st century. The second pillar of learning is learning to do. Learning to do is the application of the theory, which is the experiential part, the practical part, and the work-related part. So the skills that come in, the skill-based education that comes in the 21st century is the recognition of the second pillar of learning, which is the learning to do. The third pillar of learning in the 21st century, and I'm saying that repeatedly because this is based on a UNESCO report. The title of that report is Learning in the 21st Century, Learning the Treasure Within. It is commonly referred to as the Delors Commission report by the author of that report, Jacques Delors. And therefore, if you Google it, you will get this, what I'm trying to tell you. The third pillar of learning, the first is learning to know, the second is learning to do, the third pillar of learning is because of sustainable societies. Learning to live together and to live with others is a contribution of recognizing that as people we differ in many aspects: language, color, religion, community, caste, location, all that. Though there is so much of diversity and plurality, we must coexist, and there must be humanism, peace, compassion, tolerance, and the acceptance that we differ from one another, yet that as a humanity we need to coexist, and not just as a humanity, but also with the environment, the planet Earth, in terms of protecting the environment, the forest, the climate, and all forms of nature which contributes to sustainable societies. So that what we enjoyed from our forefathers on this beautiful planet is inherited by our children and our great-grandchildren in the same way, without having to face the adversaries of not having sustainable society. So learning to live together and to live with others results in new topics to be included in our curricula: education for sustainable development, environmental education, human values, humanistic approaches, peace education, because you cannot have any learning in war-torn societies and strife-driven societies. So the two do not. The meaning of war is not just, the meaning of peace is not just the absence of war. It means the meaning of peace is to ensure that all necessities for a decent life, air to breathe, food to eat, houses to shelter, health to maintain your life, all this is important. So learning to live together and to live with others is the third pillar of learning. And the fourth pillar of learning is learning to be. Learning to be is that we are around about 40 participants in this virtual classroom. Are we identical clones of one another? We are not. Each one of us is unique in terms of our abilities, in terms of our likes and dislikes, in terms of our aspirations. And so when we look at our students, each one of those students are unique. And when they are unique, you need to have individualization and customization. So in the 20th century, the emphasis was on structured education systems. You and I did not have choices because we said these are the 6 subjects, you learn this 6 subjects. You have no other choice. Whereas in the 21st century, the learning to be, where you recognize that 100 students in a class are unique in themselves. Someone good at maths, someone good at drawing, someone good at painting, someone good at music, someone good at a sport, someone good at economics, somebody good at engineering. Each one of them being unique. You cannot have structured systems and you must have flexible systems. So the 4 pillars of learning in the 21st century, which shows that learning is multidimensional, along with the multidimensionality of knowledge, forces us to have recommendations that look at changes. What is it that we are trying to do in an education system? Who are the 3 primary stakeholders? It is the students, the teachers, and the educational institutions. And the purpose of any education is to empower students with the right kind of knowledge, skills, competencies, capabilities, so that they become what? They become productive individuals, contributing to their own individual economic growth, societal growth, political developments, nation's economic development, and become what we call 21st century global citizens. If they are not going to be productive and they are going to be unemployed, then we have as an education system failed to equip them with that. So if you need to equip students of the 21st century, you must move towards holistic, integrated, multidisciplinary education. You must instill a culture of research. You must instill in their abilities to use digital technologies. These are all the necessities that will ensure that they are contributing individuals, productive individuals. Now, another driver, so two drivers of change are that knowledge and learning has transformed in the 21st century. The other important factor is that while the 1990s saw the advent of the computers and the internet, and you may fondly recollect with regret the kind of agitations that used to take place when the computers came in, saying that we will be jobless and life will become more uncomfortable, and therefore we should never use things like the computers. That completely changed. You remember that? There were offices, in government offices, where there were huge protests that the computer was seen as a panacea, was seen as a problem rather than a panacea. So this, the 1990s saw the computers and the internet, and we were on an information superhighway because irrespective of distances and spaces, data and information could flow. But what do we see in the 21st century? We are seeing the onset of what we call disruptive technologies. The word itself says that. It is disrupting the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we bank, the way we travel. Everything has been disrupted by artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, data science, virtual reality, augmented reality. The entire entertainment sector, the entire edutainment sector, the entire education sector, health sector, travel sector, there is no area which has not been impacted by disruptive technologies. But why are we concerned in education? We are concerned because these technologies threaten the kind of jobs that our students will be capable of handling. And you will hear commonly two adages that we do not know what the future jobs look like, and that job profiles will be changing very, very dynamically. And that has resulted in what? That machine intelligence is challenging human intelligence. And therefore, our students, if they have to be equipped with the knowledge and the skills, they must be able to handle all these changes that disruptive technologies are calling about. And therefore, the character of a graduate today and a character of a graduate that we are all I-shaped graduates, meaning that in our single discipline, we had depth. We had deep understanding of our own discipline. Whereas a graduate of the 21st century has to be a T-shaped graduate. Google it and see it. What is a T-shaped graduate? A T-shaped graduate is one who will have disciplinary depth, but will also have multiple exposures to multiple skill sets, competencies, knowledge domains, and so on. So that with the disruptive technologies, unknown future, the uncertainty of type of jobs, the changing character of the jobs, India's huge demographic youth population, which we have in the world, that can become a productive, skilled workforce. The world over, you have an aging population. Most of the European countries, China, Japan, Korea, all of them are all having an aging population. Whereas India is at a sunrise stage, having the largest youth population, and which can be the provider of human capital to the entire globe. But that can only become possible which we are calling it as the demographic dividend. If our youth are well equipped with the right kind of education that gives them knowledge and skills and competencies that make them productive individuals. Otherwise, we will be having a demographic disaster with unemployed youth who will become the lumpen in the society. So this is the context that you must understand why this policy has recommended holistic and multidisciplinary education. All of you are implementing it in some stages. All that I'm trying to tell you is that what does it entail? So from our silo-based degrees of art, science, commerce, and so on, we are now saying that we will offer at the undergraduate level a flexible 3-year or 4-year integrated multidisciplinary education, which can have an exit option. And we are allowing students to choose subjects from a range across sciences, social sciences, applied sciences, law, pharmacy, agriculture, across disciplines. And allowing those students, we are having 6 categories of courses. The curricular framework, and read through the UGC guidelines. The UGC has brought out the curriculum framework for the 4-year program. It has brought out the multiple entry and exit guidelines, how to transform institutions to become multidisciplinary, the academic bank of credit, the National Higher Education Qualification Framework, the National Credit Framework, the idea of Indian knowledge systems, global citizenship education, internationalization of higher education, a range of these guidelines. I have once shared it with Dr. Faiza, and I'm sure it is there with AMU to circulate those links to you. These guidelines are those which will help you to understand how to implement this, and whatever operational problems you face, you will find solutions in some of these guidelines. But let me give you a snapshot of it. The idea that there will be 6 kinds of courses at an undergraduate level, which we did not have in our times. We have common courses like digital skills, collaborative skills, problem solving skills, communication skills, research skills, Indian knowledge systems, universal human values, constitution and environment and gender. These are by nature not to be earmarked in your timetable. They are not to have here. You don't find a timetable in a college which will say this is one period of 1 hour for problem solving, another period for collab. Wherever earmarked credits are there, let us say Indian knowledge systems or universal human values or environment education, if in your university or the college which is affiliated to your university, you have earmarked credits, only for them the timetable should earmark a period or a class for it. Otherwise, common courses inherently are interdisciplinary courses. Communication skills. Whether I teach English literature or economics or physics or physiology like one of our participants, I teach communication skills within the discipline that I teach it. I weave it in within that. Sensitivity to gender, sensitivity to the environment, research skills, digital skills. How do you use technology? There are no earmarked periods. So the common courses are inherently the 21st century skills which our students should have in communication, collaboration, in analytical thinking, in technology-driven thinking, all that is needed, which we call as the 21st century skills. And only where earmarked credits are there, you will set aside a period or a class in your timetable. Then comes your core disciplinary subjects, which all of us recognize, which is the subjects in which we are the faculty, there as assistant professors or associate professors or professors in the core discipline that the student wants. Excluding that core discipline, we are talking about the interdisciplinary or the multidisciplinary or the elective courses, where all of you are facing challenges. You face challenges because the bulk of our higher education institutions are single discipline institutions. only arts courses, or only science courses, or only commerce courses, or only engineering courses, or only medical courses, or only pharmacy courses, or only law courses, or only nursing courses, and so on. Whereas when we say multidisciplinary, inherently, if yours is not a multidisciplinary, you will have to collaborate. So comprehensive universities like BHU or AMU or Jamia or Pune University, Bombay University, which are comprehensive universities where all these departments are there, it is possible that even without collaborating, you can offer the multidisciplinary or the interdisciplinary courses. But where it is not there, read through the UGC guideline, how to transform your institution into multidisciplinary. You collaborate through a memorandum of understanding with another institution in a given vicinity of about 10 kilometers if it is an urban area. Even in a rural area, it can even go up to 30 kilometers, and I'll tell you how you do that. You enter into an arrangement with a common fee committee, a common timetable committee, and a common examination committee. Why the timetable committee? To ensure that students are not hassled by having to travel to 2 institutions on a daily basis. Fee committee, because some courses you're doing it from the other institution, therefore the fee should not be duplicated. And an examination committee, so that when the timetable is brought out by the university for all the affiliated colleges, they know the combination of courses that students take. Maybe the examination goes on for a longer time. But this is the manner in which, now in urban areas, a 10-kilometer radius does not really affect students because of the mobility that they have. But let us say it's in a rural area. Yours is an arts college in the remotest part of India, and the next college, which is in another discipline, is about 30 kilometers away. You don't expect the student to travel 30 kilometers on a daily basis. So when you frame the timetable, the courses that the students take in another discipline, in another college, 4 days it is in the host institution and only 2 days in that institution. So the student is not traveling to 2 institutions together. These are the practical, workable solutions. Not say that we are in India, which is in a very remote part, वहाँ पे बस भी नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, और हमें कैसे collaborate करना? Even if it is 30 kilometers away, you can still work out solutions where on a given day, a student is in that college and is not forced to come back into the other college. Now, suppose in the courses that the student wants courses which is not offered by another institution. Let us say the student wants to learn a language, say Japanese or maybe German, or maybe wants to learn something of jurisprudence. These are not being offered in any of the colleges around. Then you are allowing another flexibility. We have a Swayam platform where we are offering almost 4,000 courses, and the UGC guidelines tell us that 40% of the credits of a student at undergraduate level can be done through online mode, through ODL system, through open universities, or through the Swayam platform. So where a student is not doing it in a physical offline mode education, we are allowing that student to take up courses as per the flexibility of curricular choices given to him or her, to take it up through Swayam platform or through open universities or through the ODL system. Now, the third category we have covered: common, core, and interdisciplinary. Then we have 3 other categories. One of it, which was referred to one of the faculty from Jamia Hamdard: skill enhancement courses, ability enhancement courses, and value added. Let me talk about ability enhancement first. The undergraduate education in our country, post our independence in 1947, thanks to the colonial hangover, was offered only in English medium. And as a nation, you know the number of languages we speak? We can speak as many as 200 languages, not the 22 languages listed in the 8th schedule of our constitution. There are 200 languages that this country is home to and has such a rich plurality of linguistic diversity. And we must understand that if you take in the dialects, the number is a mind-boggling 1,638 dialects. This is the richness which is not seen in any other country in the world. Any European country, any Western country, any Asian country, any Arab country, any African country, you will not see this kind of diversity. Now, when we restricted higher education only to English language, a country like India, which lives in its villages, which is largely agrarian by nature, where school education is conducted largely in regional languages, many of them do not join higher education because they feel diffident of learning in English language. So for the first time, as a measure of equity and inclusion, and as recognizing the importance of multilingualism, we said higher education can be offered in regional languages. Of course, our responsibility becomes more charged because while I may speak languages, I may not have the strength or the caliber to really teach that as in that language. So we have to become bilingual. The availability of material is solved by a national mission which is doing translation of all reading material, reference materials, and so on. So ability enhancement is language skills. They are enhancing the language abilities. So let us assume there is a college which wants to offer it only in Hindi medium or Marathi medium or Gujarati medium. You want to have communicative English courses. They are ability enhancement courses. Or yours is an English medium college and you want to have, still you want to have communicative English, communicative Hindi or any other language, you should be able to offer that. So ability enhancement is looking at functional communication skills, which will contribute to the 21st century communication skills of an individual. Skill enhancement is that second pillar of learning, the learning to do. And as I said, the learning to do is important because if you want a T-shaped graduate, it is not just understanding theory, but also understanding and having the competencies in certain skills. And therefore, the skills, which has become completely a new area in terms of not looking at plumbing or electrical work and so on, but looking at IT sector, the services sector, retail management, agribusiness management, hospitality sector, travel and tourism. All these are looking at new set of courses, which are very niche kind of areas. Blockchain management, cold chain management, logistics management, IT sector, service sector management. How do you do cataloging of items for online portals, commerce, e-commerce segment? These are all a whole new ranges which fetch students jobs, their employability being very high. But as someone said, these skill enhancement, we are not faculty competent for that. Therefore, we are suggesting as per the UGC guidelines that you tie it up with industry or you try and tie it up even in the rural areas. Let us say you are in a remote part of Northeast where dairy farming is happening or aqua farming is taking place or floriculture is taking place. That kind of industries we have to think of. See, skill enhancement is not one size fits all. Nothing is one size fits all given the size and scale of India. But skill enhancement particularly should be region specific because you need to get people who can come and teach those. We have even gone ahead to say even artisanship or craftsmanship or people who have retired, these can come into the sector. And I don't think there is a dearth of people who can be available for that. Then comes your value-added courses. Value-added courses are courses, in some cases, colleges are funging the two, saying that both skill enhancement and value-added, we are combining the two, particularly in engineering colleges. But value-added are basically for design thinking, media studies, journalism, community-related projects. These are all the... Now, every year, a student does 40 credits, accumulating in 3 years to 120 credits and 4 years to 160 credits. And we are saying that whichever subject the student wants to major in, we are saying that more than 50% of the credits will be in that discipline. So if it is 120 credits or a 3-year program, the student can exit completely at the bachelor's level. That student should at least do 60 credits in a given discipline. And we are giving exit option at every year. UG certificate at the end of the first year, UG diploma at the end of the second year, a bachelor's in 3 years. You need not do your 4th year, you do only a 3-year program. This is the state. The large idea is that 50% credits will entitle you to get a bachelor's in bracket, if it is a 3-year program, physics or chemistry or economics or agriculture or inorganic chemistry, whatever, in whichever you have done more than 50% of the credits. Now, 3rd year, you can exit an undergraduate program. But we are talking about the 4th year with 2 options. 4th year with coursework or 4th year with research. 4th year with coursework would mean whatever you are doing, business as usual, theory-based courses that you continue into your 7th and your 8th semester. The only distinction being that here, when you acquire more than 50% credits in a given discipline, you get yourself with a bachelor's with majoring in a subject. So you can have more than one major because we are allowing a 10% additionality. For 120 credits, we are giving 132. For 160 credits, we are giving 176. So you can take up 2 majors and a minor, or you can take up 1 major and 2 minors, in whatever way the student feels comfortable. The next 3rd, 4th year that we are talking about, the second option, is what some of you mentioned and which you all have a lot of apprehensions about, understandably, because sometimes we don't have professors at college level to really think in terms of guiding these research scholars. That is your bachelor's with research, where in the 7th and the 8th semester, you will be exposed to subjects like research methodology and so on, and you will submit a dissertation or a research project which will carry a weightage of more than 18 to 20 credits. And that is not a walk-in, as someone correctly said, 7.5 and above, only they would be entitled to do the bachelor's with research. So now you have 3 categories of graduates. A 3-year graduate student with 120 credits, a 4-year bachelor's with honors with 160 credits, a 4-year bachelor's with research with again 160 credits. Now, the 3-year bachelor's will do the revised 2-year program, which is the new guidelines that have been brought out by the UGC, not the existing master's program, but the revised PG program, which is also inherently multidisciplinary. And you have the exit option also at the end of the 1st year. The 4-year bachelor's with honors will do a 1-year master's. As I said again, this is the new revised 1-year master's program, which is in the works and where the curricula and all are being designed. And the 4-year bachelor's with research, the person with that cutoff of 7.5 CGPA who has joined bachelor's with research is exempted completely from the master's to join for the PhD program. And if I can quote what the UGC chairman gave in an interview yesterday, which is making it even more revolutionary. I don't know whether they will really allow that or not. But as per the statement that was given in the press yesterday, a bachelor's with research will be allowed to take up a PhD in any discipline of a subject which he or she has studied at the undergraduate level. It need not be your major alone. It can be your minor also. It can be a subject in which you did some minimum credits of 12 credits or so. So that is the flexibility we are talking of. The flexibility in choice of subjects, flexibility to exit, the flexibility to take up across multiple institutions, take up across multiple modes, which impacts your postgraduate and your doctoral admission. So for the doctoral admission, you have 3 entrants. The 3 years with 2 years masters, 4 year with 1 year masters, and the 4 years with research are all coming at the doctoral level. And the policy completely has done away with the MPhil program. Now, many of you sitting here may be MPhil holders. Please don't think because the degree is no longer going to be offered, you have undervalued your MPhil qualification. MPhil had a purpose at certain time. MPhil was once at the time when I joined as a lecturer, it was an eligibility criteria to join as a lecturer. It was also an eligibility to join for the PhD program. Today, MPhil is neither required as an eligibility to join for an assistant professor, nor is it a requirement or a precondition to do your PhD. When a qualification is no longer a criteria for employment or for further education, it becomes an obsolete degree, and therefore there is no purpose in continuing with that. Now, To make all this possible, three instrumentalities are there. The Academic Bank of Credit, which is a digital storehouse of academic credits. Every student is given an APAR ID, which is a automated, it reads as authenticated personal automated academic registration number, just as Aadhaar. But since Aadhaar is used for ration card and I do not know what all things that we look at, APAR is a student ID that will be given to students from school education onwards, and which will continue till his post graduation and doctoral and further level, and that would be the place from where he or she can retrieve all the academic credentials acquired by him or her throughout their student life. This is done through a DigiLocker, and an institution onboards it onto the ABC platform, which is the abc.gov.in. Have a look at the portal. Now, this is done because when you allow students to exit, you are giving them an option to take a break and come back after a gap, which is a 7-year window. We have allowed up to 7 years. Let us say your college or your university implemented NEP from 2022 academic year. Your first year of the student is getting over in 2023 and the second year is getting over in 2024. Let us say that student takes a break this year. Then the student calculates from 2022, where is my 7 years? I want to do a 4 years, then I come back, working it backwards in the reverse to say that I come back and complete it. Whatever credits already earned remain valid, and the student can do it in the same institution or can go into another institution. The NHUQF takes care of the mobility into other institutions by establishing the equivalence. The credit framework ensures that credits at different levels that we have ranged from 4.5 to 8 up to 8 are done through multiple institutions or through multiple modes, facilitating the lateral entry and exit. Now, one important factor of our undergraduate program, the fact that many of us hear the statement that 40% of our students are unemployable, is something that we all need to really look at. When you say they are unemployed, it is something else. But when you say they are unemployable, it means that they do not possess the skills by which an industry or an organization can engage them. And that is really forcing us to look at two aspects. From the faculty point of view, it is the need to go towards outcome-based education, identify learning outcomes and course outcomes, and go through active learning environments to equip them through flipped classroom mode, through innovative pedagogies of using presentations, group discussions, studio work, field work, and so on. And the other side, we looked at internships. So all undergraduate students today have to do a mandatory internship. Someone was mentioning, I think the lady from Calcutta was mentioning that, or rather from West Bengal was mentioning that. What type of internships? So please read through the UGC guidelines. Our assumption that internship is in industry and corporate, please remove that. Industry and corporate only come in for applied sciences, engineering, management, and so on. Our undergraduate students learning history or English or economics cannot go into the corporate sector. What is the internships that they will do? They will take up projects that connect to that particular discipline. That can be in a library, that can be in a media house, that can be with an NGO, that can be with a research scholar, that can be with a doctoral student, it can be with a PG department, it can be with a retired scientist, it can be with a retired academician, or it can be a study of a government scheme. As a country, we have more than about 800 schemes run by the central government and by the state governments. It relates to sanitation, it relates to road, electrification, women's health, children, Anganwadis, all that. These are all programs run by the government. We should be able to bring about a community connect also, by which our students can take up projects related to these areas. So you have to prepare based on the guidelines for your discipline, a list of topics or the list of areas in which we can ask our students to take up internship by doing a mapping in your given location. What are those government schemes that these students can study? Or which are the libraries there, which are the museums there, which are the media houses there? All these, you don't have to think in terms of corporate houses and industry, because that is not where the non-technical undergraduate students need to go. It is why we prepared internship is the gap between education and work, where students may excel in education, but when they go out to face an interview, when they go out to speak to people, when they have to collaborate, when they have to manage their time, they are found wanting, and that is why they cannot get jobs. So to bridge that gap, we made it to have internships. So I have only covered the part of the 4-year curriculum, and let me have a word or two on holistic education and what is commonly being asked. What is holistic education as opposed to all-round development? All-round development is a more generic term, but when we say holistic, it means not just the cognitive and the intellectual development. It means the physical development, the emotional development, the ethical development, the artistic development, the aesthetic development. We need to inculcate all that, and that is how sports, arts, debating, music, painting, all these have to be encouraged in our campuses. And on the socio-emotional well-being, the mental health of our students. Please understand, students of today are students who have entertainment in a gadget and live in social media platforms and are prone to a high degree of isolation, which has resulted in depression, behavioral disorders, resorting to therefore substance abuse, drug abuse, and in extreme cases, even suicide. This phenomenon is something that we as teachers, in our role as being a mentor, as being a facilitator, we should be able to empathize with and try and understand. But you can't be the psychologist and you cannot provide the psychiatric assistance. That's why we wrote in the policy that in addition to academic and career counseling, we should have psychological counselors also available on our higher education, within our higher education institutions, to handle this kind of divergence. We should, of course, if I had time, I would have talked about the aspect relating to looking at children with disabilities, particularly those with learning disabilities, because world over, we are now becoming conscious of the neurodivergent children, not just the physically disabled, for which there is a lot of access material available, but those children who are having autism, who are having multiple sclerosis, who are dyslexic. For them, how do we address their learning needs? So overall, as a faculty, you need to start looking at holistic and multidisciplinary education, not as if it is a mountain which you have to surmount, but realizing that unless our students get this, it is likely that 5 years down the line, when you are walking by a road and a student who has studied under you is lying there unemployed, that is a question that you need to ask. What is it? And therefore, don't make this statement, what do I know because I taught only one particular paper and why the student is unemployed? It's not so. We are, as higher education faculty, responsible for the learning outcomes and are directly accountable for that. And therefore, when we teach them, we must equip them with that kind of competencies that make them productive individuals. So let us work in that direction. I'll stop here and keep about 15 minutes for interaction. Thank you very much. That Rakesh Shukla has raised his hand. Can you ask your question, please? Anyone who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand or directly unmute yourself and introduce and ask your question, please. Please go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is Abu Aman, a faculty member from Jamia Hamdard. Actually, I inboxed the question. Uh, how does NEP 2020 addresses teacher education through various strategies aimed at improving the quality and effectiveness of teacher training? Because, ma'am, before implementing this NEP 2020, all the teachers have not been given the training. Rather, I can say before implementing or giving the responsibility to the teachers, the leaders who has the vision regarding this, I mean, the heads of the institutions, they have not been given any training. So it would have been clear to us. Though we have gone through the 66 pages of this NEP 2020, but there are certain few things which are not clear.
Okay. You're asking about teacher education as a discipline for pre-service and in-service teacher, that is the B.Ed. M.Ed, or are you talking about the faculty capacity building? Are you talking about faculty training, or you're talking about teacher education, the B.Ed program?
No, faculty trainings.
Okay. When you're talking in terms of the faculty training, it is a fact that UGC guidelines alone cannot suffice to really empower even the leadership in understanding the NEP. But let me be very clear to you, vice chancellors, directors, deans, they've all had a lot of orientation programs on various aspects of NEP. They are even a part of the task forces that have been a part of making these guidelines. And if I understand very clearly, I think the UGC has had a series of programs talking to the leadership. Now, my way of looking at it is different. I don't expect the vice chancellor of my university to come and start telling me what I need to do in my class. It is something that we undergo as training programs by attending such kind of training, which is like an orientation program, or hands-on training that is given through the faculty development programs. Now, I do understand that under this revised program of MMTTP, we do have 1 week faculty development programs also. Now, let us assume that these programs are inadequate and therefore are not really still meeting our requirements. Then I would say, as a teacher, I need to self-empower myself in terms of trying to understand. And today, if you actually just type NEP in the Google, you will come across a number of literature as well as a number of videos, including my own, which should be about 80 or 100 of them, talking on various aspects of the NEP. So look at these videos, look at these kind of explanations that we are giving across conferences, across a number of conclaves that are being held, where even if, let us say, MMTTP is providing a limited scope for only a few such programs, you can still get yourself empowered. My basic point that you need to understand is that if you read through the UGC guidelines, which are about 15 and 16 in numbers, I'd request AMU to share the links with you all so that you don't have to start searching through the UGC website. But even if you just go through those guidelines, where there are actual examples given to you in terms of the credit combinations and so on, because curriculum framing we may not be a part of. Curriculum framing is being done at the university level. HODs and deans, they're sitting and they're doing it. When it comes to us, our role as a faculty is the shift in the pedagogy. We must shift from passive teaching to creating active learning environments, which means that before I go to a class, in my last class, I will tell the students that tomorrow we are going to discuss this. I put forward about 10-15 minutes. I create a lesson plan. You see, in school education, lesson plans are mandatory. In higher education, we don't prepare lesson plans. But in this new requirement, where we are telling so many activities, suppose you are teaching a topic, let us say I am going to teach Indian society, and I am going to cover on various aspects of caste and class and so on. I have a topic in hand and I have a 1 hour lecture session. In that 1 hour lecture session, I have 15 minutes where I elicit views from the students in terms of a presentation or putting forward a question that calls for a group discussion and so on. Then 15 to 20 minutes, I talk on the topic as a faculty. Then I give them some activities again, which I link to what knowledge, understanding, and skills that student needs to understand in respect of that topic. Now, this is the manner in which we have to throw away all our age-old notes. That's the first thing that we need to do. Throw that away, relook at that topic in this context of looking at active learning. The learner has to engage in 3 ways. The learner to learner engagement, the learner to curriculum and content engagement, and the learner to the faculty engagement. And you start delineating that. This is the fundamental that you should look at and relate this to outcome-based education. So on the UGC's website, learning outcome curriculum framework is given for about 100 odd disciplines. And I'm sure the disciplines that we commonly cover are all already covered in that. Have a look at that. I'm not asking you, and I never ask a teacher to do exactly as it is, because I would always want your creativity and your own individual perspective to come in, because every teacher is unique in the way they approach their student. But the idea is we move towards outcome-based education, we create active learning environments, and we also try to the best extent to segregate or unbundle the content in terms of actually trying to make it very, I would say, modular by nature. Unbundle it and prepare a lesson plan. In higher education, unlike school education, please understand, a school which talks of 100% results at class 10 and class 12 board exams holds the teacher directly accountable for the examination performance of the students. In higher education, because we are teaching different subjects and because of the autonomy that we have, we do not hold faculty accountable for that. But we are now conducting a survey where we would like to do a longitudinal survey and understand why some students performed well and why some students did not perform well. And one of the contributing factors is obviously the quality of the teacher. So teacher accountability is something that is there. We need to understand that, but we cannot say that university has not told us. And please, the teacher is an autonomous entity and must respect that fact that as an autonomous person, I am the king or the queen in my classroom. This is what is to be taught. It has to be outcome driven. These are the activities to be incorporated. I cannot teach my students the way my teachers taught me, because at that time, questioning was not allowed at all. Lips are sealed. We were never asked to ask questions. So we killed any creativity and independent thinking that students had. Whereas today, we want students to be proactive, to engage with us, to discuss, and to understand that understanding becomes the real assimilation happens only when there is a dual exchange of ideas. So just do that. Just start doing that. And workshops, yes, some of the training centers do conduct FDPs. I'm not too sure about AMU. I think you should either ask Dr. Faiza or Shakir or any of them who handle the HRDCs. But there are in-depth 1-week programs, discipline specific, to move towards outcome-based education. And that may help you better rather than a general NEP sensitization and orientation.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, I have one more doubt about the internship, which is clear actually, but about the students, like a 4-year uh, graduate with research can take the admission in any discipline in, I think, PhD. But ma'am, my question is, like after only a 6 months of research or 1 year of research, and the particularly in humanities and social sciences, the students would go to the NGOs, as you said in your lecture, NGOs or some, to the PhD students to help them, or some sort of projects, small
No,
mini
no, no. I think you're confusing it. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
you're confusing.
Yeah, I have
PhD
this
is
doubt.
not related to internship. PhD is not related to internship. Internship is a mandatory part of the 4-year undergraduate program, or even the 3-year program. And that is only of 4 to 6 credits. The research is one where you do it with the rigor of research as you are currently doing it. There is a research guide. There is a proper research topic. You cover that topic in your 7th and your 8th semester. So it is not any small where you go to an NGO. Nobody does a research going to an NGO.
So,
NGO
ma'am,
is,
it would be in the 4th year of the 4 years degree.
oh yes, research
Yeah.
is only in the 7th and the 8th semester of the 4-year degree program. What you do as a 4-credit course of internship is something you can do either in your first year or your second year, and that is not in any way connected to your bachelor's with research. It's a mandatory component of the undergraduate program. Whether you do a 120 credit course or whether you do a 160 credit course, even if you're doing a bachelor's with research, you would have done an internship earlier in your previous first year or second year or even third year.
Okay, ma'am. So I understood in the 4th year they have research under a supervisor.
Yes.
But ma'am, after only 1 year, they will take the admissions in the PhD in any discipline. My question is, if a student is coming from the social studies and humanities
No,
background,
any discipline in which he or she has done either a major or a minor.
and if it is minor in science, then is it possible for him to take the admission in science for
Yes,
PhD?
yes, that is what the UGC chairman's press statement stated yesterday. And that is what the guidelines for the PG degree also tells us very clearly.
As
That a
of
minor
now,
student-
guidelines about the research seems okay, and because it is inclusive in the NEP. But the thing is, like after only 1 year, a social science background student, how it is
No,
possible
no,
for
you
him
are,
to
you
go
are
to the space?
misunderstanding. That is what I said. We are not able to shed our structured thinking. Once we say core discipline and interdisciplinary, the interdisciplinary course is also given equal weightage, saying that the student as an adult learner would be in today's time quite capable. And let us also be very clear, the quality of research coming out with people doing it to 5 to 7 years is quite dismal in our country. And it has nothing to do with the duration of the PhD programs.
Okay.
If one takes an analysis of the PhDs that have come out today, it is very shocking that these very PhD students who have spent rigorous 5 years or even 7 years, it is only now that we are limiting it to certain number of years, have not really been able to show that they did a very good quality PhD research. So it's not related to the time that you put it. It is more in terms of the rigor, in terms of the publications, in terms of the actual field work, in terms of the analysis, how often you present it in conferences. These are the kind of activities that need to be weaved in. Where basically when you're saying research, you are looking at an unexplored area, and you should be able to do things in your own independent way, arriving at your own findings. And that becomes important, and not cut, copy, paste, which is the bulk of what our PhD program, PhD theses are, which is sad to say, and I can say it in any forum, that we are actually besetted with very substandard publications, where a number of journals opened up under this care of that you need to have 2 publications during your PhD program, not worth the salt of being called a research publication at all, and which were actually plagiarized material. So the rigor of a bachelor's with research, it is too premature to really say, because if we are not doing it with proper rigor, then we will really become a laughing stock, because here is a student with a bachelor's with research who has been a very poor quality output and is also then going into a PhD program. Globally, we would be at a receiving end for having raised a very poor quality PhD program. So that is something, the rigor should not be lost. But don't mix it with internship.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
Thank you so much.
May I know who is speaking, please? Whoever is interrupting, please ask. Please introduce yourself. Who's speaking?
Ma'am, my name is Mazhar Zeti. I'm calling from UGC HRDC.
Acha, bataiye.
Ma'am, the second session will start at 3:30.
No, doesn't matter. We can, I think it is just about 3:20. So I think the participant, if there is some question, we can still take that up.
Ma'am, second session will start at 3:30.
Yeah, that's what. It's only 3:22 now. It's only 3:22. If anybody has a question, let us take that up. I can see Rakesh Shukla has raised his hand. Does he want to ask a question? If not, we can wind it up. Okay, I think Rakesh ji does not have any questions. So thank you all very much for having